Hello again. So in this lecture, I'll be completing this chapter, which is on planning, writing and completing oral presentations. In the previous lecture, we talked about how to plan, write and complete speeches and presentations. Use of effective and relevant visual aids is an important part of any presentation, as we have learned from the previous lecture. So you have to make sure that your visual aids clarify the main points, and it should also create interest of your audience. Adding variety to your visual aids is very important, or else your audience might lose the attention from your presentation. The speech or presentation sounds monotonous if you do not add variety to your visual aids. So keep this in mind. Visual aids also help to improve learning of your audience. It also helps you as a speaker. They help you remember the details of your messages, and they also help to improve your professional image. So, depending on who your audience is, prepare the right kind of contents as your visual aids, and then only you can have a very good, effective presentation. There are various types of visual aids: overhead transparencies, electronic presentations, chalkboards, flip cards or 35mm slides, etc. Now, which one you want to use depends on your situation, depends on your location, depends on your company, depends on your audience, various things. So it's totally up to you as the presenter to decide what type of visual aids would be effective for your speech or presentation. Product samples, scale models, audio tapes, film strips and movies, television and videotapes are also some examples of visual aids. So there are advantages and disadvantages of every type of visual aid that you consider using. Let's have a look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of some of those mostly commonly used visual aids. What are the advantages of transparencies? So it is inexpensive, easy to use, and it is also very simple to create. However, there are also disadvantages. There is lack of flexibility, as slides must be replaced if content changes. It is also very fragile format, so they easily chip, flake, scratch and tear. Another disadvantage is it has overhead projectors, and this can be noisy and difficult to talk over. Electronic presentations also has its advantages and disadvantages. Some of the advantages are that it is real-time data, multimedia, flexibility and portability. However, the disadvantage is that it is specialized equipment. So if you can if you are not aware of how to use it properly, then it can get pretty complicated to use for some, and also may not be available in all situations. Technique over content is another disadvantage. Most people focus more on the technical components of a presentation, paying more attention to the animation and special effects than the contents of each slide. So then the whole importance of the presentation, focus of the presentation is disrupted if you're doing that, right? So you have to keep this in mind. Overuse of special effects is also a disadvantage of electronic presentations. Now, if you have these advantages and disadvantages in mind, then when you're using any of these visual aids, you will plan accordingly. You will make sure that these disadvantages do not turn into an obstacle to your to an effective presentation, right? So it's good to know that what are the things you should and should not do. How can you create effective slides? You can organize the content and graphics, ensure consistency, design elements properly, and also use special effects where necessary. Not only slides, even choosing a right color scheme is important, because color stimulates emotions. Like for example, warm colors such as red and orange can excite your audience. Blue color usually keep your audience relaxed. But always recognize the cultural differences, because you cannot actually generalize for all kind of audiences. Not everybody will have the same effect on colors, because color may have different meanings from culture to culture. So you have to keep this in mind. Then while choosing color, you also have to remember to limit color selections. That means avoid using too many colors in professional business presentations. Use contrasting colors, adjust to room light, and order colors from dark to light. But of course, keeping your audience's mind is very important. Whatever is suitable, most effective for your audience, you decide accordingly. Background design, fonts and type styles are also important considerations to keep in mind. So what type of background you're giving makes a difference. What type of font, what size of font you're using also makes a difference. Animation and special effects. So when you have to use the transitions or hyperlinks or whatever, you have to keep this in mind, decide according to your audience and according to your understanding and everything. Now, whether to give handouts to your audience or not, this is also a consideration that you make during your presentation. Sometimes you can give charts or diagrams to your audience, sometimes some company reports, maybe magazine articles or copies of slides or lists of websites, or even brochures and pictures are distributed as handouts before starting your presentation. That can have a positive effect in your delivery, in understanding of your audience. How can you master your delivery? This is very important to understand. Sometimes you can memorize, but usually in most of the cases it is better not to memorize your delivery, because then if you by any chance forget your lines, your speech will sound stilted, right? So be careful about that. Sometimes, depending on what type of presentation you're giving, you might read out certain things. Things such as some government policies, or maybe if you're doing some technical presentation, then you can read them out. Speaking from notes is another option that you have while you are planning your delivery. Impromptu speaking is also a consideration that you have to make. Then you are preparing to speak. So while doing so, you should know the material. You must practice your delivery properly before coming in front of your audience. You need to have an understanding of your location. You need to know where you will be standing while you're presenting, right? And then you have to adapt the content, which means that you have to make sure that you are prepared to address audiences from other culture. Being confident is very important during your presentation. So how do you build your confidence? Prepare extra materials. Rehearse. If you're rehearsing properly, then even if you're a little bit nervous during your presentation, you will be able to complete it properly. You will be able to keep going. So rehearse properly and think positively. Do not let negative thoughts make you nervous. So thoughts such as, what can be some negative thought? Nobody is going to like my speech, or my proposal will not be accepted. So these type of negative thoughts you should not allow yourself to have, okay? Then you have to visualize success, and you will be able to do that when you are thinking positive. You have to take a deep breath when you start. That can help you to ease a little. Okay, then be prepared. Get comfortable during your presentation. Don't panic. There is no need to panic, because you have to remember, you have prepared extra material, you have rehearsed, you are like, you know what you're talking about and everything. So why should you be panicking? You should never be panicking, okay? Then you must keep going, and this will be possible when you're rehearsing properly and you're prepared and you're positive, right? And don't focus in yourself only. Focus outside yourself. So that means just like how I am talking, how I am standing, don't focus on yourself so much. Try to focus outside yourself. So once you've built the confidence, now you have to appear more confident. And how do you do that? You have to get control at the very beginning. So maybe you can start with a humor, as we talked about previously. That will help you to ease down a little, right? There can be other tools that you can use that can help you to get control over the situation at the very beginning. Then be careful about your posture, how you're standing, whether you're too uptight or you're too relaxed, These things makes a difference. How you're keeping your hands. So these things make difference. So you have to be aware of these things, and when you're practicing, you have to learn to keep these things in your mind so that you don't make a blunder in front of a group of audience. Facial expressions can also vary from person to person. Just imagine if you're unnecessarily smiling during your presentation, or if you're too serious during your presentation. These can make differences. So you have to be careful about your facial expressions. Maintaining eye contact is an indication of confidence. If you are unable to make eye contact with your audience, that shows your lack of confidence, and you should not be doing that. Always be confident, always maintain eye contact with your audience while you're doing a presentation or giving a speech. Using appropriate gesture is also important, and we always have to remember that gestures, what it means, can vary from culture to culture, even from person to person. So what type of gestures you are making will have an impact in your presentation, so you have to be careful about that. Your gestures should be such that you look confident. And then control your tone of voice. Your tone of voice also is an indication of your personality, of your confidence. So if you're keeping all these things in mind, then you will be able to appear more confident during your presentation. So then you're presenting the visuals with overhead transparencies or electronic slides. So how you will be changing it, whether you should be highlighting or pointing, all depends on the type of visual aids that you're using. And lastly, always be prepared to answer questions after your presentation. And in order to do that, while doing it, you have to focus on the questioner. You need to control the situation. So what type of question you have and how you're answering it makes a difference. And the direction of the next question can be depending on the situation that you are creating. So try to control the situation. Motivate the questions, respond appropriately, maintain self-control. Don't get carried away with any type of question. Always be professional. And conclude the speech. That's all from this chapter. Thanks for listening.